Hi, everyone. Rakesh Khurana here. Thanks very much for joining me today. I'm here with Dean Robin Kelsey, who is the Dean of Arts and Humanities here at Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Sciences. He is also the Shirley Carter Burden Professor of Photography and a faculty member in the History of Art and Architecture Department. He is a renowned teacher and scholar, and I'm just delighted, Robin, to have you here with us for a few minutes today.
Rakesh, it's a pleasure as always.
So it's only been a few weeks, but COVID-19 has already caused incalculable human devastation. I think all around the world, we're all trying to basically communicate with each other in different ways. We're trying to adapt and understand a very difficult environment. Everything feels like it's moving so fast and can feel overwhelming. As a professor in the arts and humanities, as a scholar, what do the humanities have to say to us at this critical moment?
That's a big question, Rakesh, because the humanities with many voices, everything from galaxies on one end down to molecules and quarks at the other. And in the humanities, primary scale, I would say, is that of human experience. And what you were just saying about the number of weeks that COVID-19 has been around in our lives is quite striking, because as a matter of human experience, it feels so much longer than that, right? And that kind of subjective experience of time is something that humanists would be very interested in. As an experience, COVID-19 is, for the most part, a source of anxiety, an invisible fear with which we are all contending. It's driving us inward into our homes, into our families, into ourselves. And we're having to draw on our inner resources of creativity and resilience in ways that for many of us feel unprecedented. Mm-hmm. And I think the humanities have a lot to say about how to rise to that challenge. There's a lot of examples in the humanities of people finding opportunity in the midst of the challenge of turning inward in that way.
So I appreciate you sharing that, the humanities are multivocal. They work through a variety of different mediums. And I was wondering, what perspectives do you personally find helpful as sort of trying to make sense of this moment, recognizing that, how we think about something while we're in it versus, over a longer time, we get a different perspective. But I was wondering what you find personally helpful at this moment.
Well, one of the insights that I think is characteristic of the arts and humanities is the inseparability of form and content. Because humanists focus on human experience and form and content are inseparable in our experience, that is one of the insights that we carry with us. So reading a book in a physical form taken from a library is a different book than a book read digitally on a screen. And I think right now we are channeling so much of our social lives, so much of our work lives through our electronic devices and networks, that we're experiencing a kind of thinning of form, even as we're experiencing a great breadth of content. We get to see our colleagues and our friends on the screen. We get to hear their voices, but so many of our sensory inputs are not engaged in the same way. The sense of touch is just the plastic of our keyboards and screens. There's no smells, there's no tastes in this world. And I think that attenuation of the sensory experience of social life and of life in the world, those senses are activated when we're out in the world with people. And I think that attenuation for me is part of the challenge of this moment.
So it's interesting when you talked about the connection between form and content, and as a sort of scholar of photography, I could imagine some people having argued that an image itself may have thinned out the human experience when photography first emerged. How it was cropped, a photo, or how perspective was taken, the distance. It could exaggerate certain things and amplify, or it could minimize other things. And I was just wondering that, with the emergence of photography and other human discontinuities, were similar observations being made, or is this something unique to the digital world?
No, absolutely. This kind of question of the replacement of experience of the world with the experience of images of the world is an anxiety that belongs very much to the whole of the modern period, including the development of photography. About a year or a year and a half ago, I was traveling on a plane crossing the country. It was daytime, bright sunlight, but of course all the shades had been pulled and everyone was looking at their screens, mostly at movies. And I thought in that moment about Plato's parable of the cave and people looking at shadows rather than the truth of the world. And I thought, boy, if you could go back in time to see Plato, you have to say, you haven't seen anything yet. Humanity is going to become even more enthralled with shadow play. And as someone who loves...
There's no shame in Netflix, I just want to say. Sometimes can help to deal with anxiety right now. So
no, it's very true. It's very true. But I also am talking to a lot of friends and colleagues who are feeling the extent to which a life that's sort of wholly with the image world of our screens is somehow unsatisfying. In a sense, we're in the position of someone with a sweet tooth who is accustomed to having, a dessert every day, but suddenly they can eat nothing but sweets, right? And there's a sense in which at least I get to the end of each day, and I'm actually rather tired of images in a certain sense, although I still crave works of art.
Yeah, no, it's I've heard something similar to from students, since we de-densified the campus, how much, they appreciated the way we could stay connected from the technology, but how much they miss human contact and serendipity. And I know you've written about chance as well, and chance in photography, but that we really are social beings, and it's only, and this notion of an atomistic individual kind of up against the world, if there was any time where that can be challenged, I think it's the here and now. One question, the arts and humanities have always, provided sense of meaning and purpose, and yet we also know they've been challenged in recent years in terms of how people have understood their role in society, their importance in education. Given the huge economic dislocation that's happening right now, I couldn't help but think about how this is affecting the arts and humanities communities. During the Great Depression, the WPA saw art and artists as both critical to support, but also important for the sort of psychological and cultural recovery of the nation. Do you think something like that is possible today? Could this be a moment? What would it look like if you had to speculate?
Yeah, I would say that while there have been challenges to the humanities in particular in recent years within higher education, that this seems to me a time that's really rife with potential for the arts and humanities. The arts and humanities are the means by which we define ourselves as a people, that we define what we take to be the beautiful, the just, and the good. And I think in these trying times, those means of defining ourselves are exceedingly important. And it will be remarkable to watch what our artists do. I mean, when art is at its best, it is a way to grapple with and represent history even as it's being made and before it's understood. So it's not so much that art is prophecy, it's more that art is just insightful into its own historical moment with sometimes an impolite degree of honesty that makes it a wonder. And I'm incredibly excited to see what artists do in this moment. I would say one other thing, though, Rakesh, about the challenge of the humanities these days. Some of that challenge, I think, stems from the fact that the humanities cultivate skills on the way to something else. That is, that in the humanities, we learn to communicate because we have something we desperately want to say. We learn to observe acutely because we see something that matters to us and we look for more. And we learn to reason because we find ourselves very keen on showing somebody else that something is beautiful or meaningful, whether it's a poem or a painting, and we need the argument in order to make our case. And so sometimes I think that we undersell our own capacity to give students the skills that they will need in the world because we are focused on something beyond those skills. I also think we need a great acronym. You know, STEM has been a very popular acronym, and I think we need one in the humanities. And I was thinking about if we teach people how to reason and how to interpret and how to communicate and how to experience, that would spell rice, and that would make the humanities a staple. And we could have some wonderful slogan like "Come harvest with us."
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And one of the reasons I just so enjoy having you as a colleague is that those things that you just described, which just come so naturally from you, a sense of empathy, the way you communicate so clearly your thoughts, the way that you always widen our circles of concern in our conversations when we talk about our community and beyond. I think it's something that's really unique to your perspective, but it seems to have, just based on what you said, also been informed by your vocation and avocation. Just really grateful to have you as a colleague. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Rakesh, thank you so much. The gratitude goes both ways. This was wonderful.
Thanks. Thanks very much for joining me. We're going to pilot this and see if who else we could get to join us for a few minutes and describe how their experience has been during this time and how we can better understand and make meaning of this very challenging moment in human history.